Listen well. A king cannot lead by standing still. A king pushes onward always, accepting the consequences and never looking back. That said, a king can accept nothing without first accepting himself. Should he stand still, I ask you to stand by him and lend him a hand, as his friend and as his brother. Please, take care of my son.
I'm afraid I must ask your forgiveness.
Trial should be over by now, right?
Can't tell a bloody thing from here. Let's make for the altar. Look out!
And welcome back to part 27 of Final Fantasy XV. Today we're tackling episode Ignis, the third and final DLC that was released for the game before Royal Edition, even though chronologically it's the second. So the one that came out second we're doing third, which is later on, but we'll get to that when we get to that. Episode Ignis is essentially what else went on and what else happened between Noctis' fight with the Leviathan and Noctis waking up. So essentially when he gets knocked out and Titan and Leviathan are still going at it for a while, what happened there?
I'll find a way to the altar, but I need you to keep the enemy distracted.
You got it.
And it's also like the best time I'm going to be able to finally show off what Ignis is really capable of, because he is a good character to play as and he is very capable. I just haven't had any good chance to use him, so now we're going to, even if it's going to force me to sit through this tutorial quickly. As I've mentioned before, but I'll mention it again since now it's teaching it to us, use Flame Bind when you want to do single target or focus damage. You go for a lot of damage very quickly and burn through them. You do Ice Bind or whatever it's Cold Bind, whatever they call it, as the game freezes up momentarily. Frost Bind when you want to hit everyone. When you want to do group attacks, it does less damage, but you'll be hitting more enemies at once. So when there's a group of enemies around, it is the ideal strategy to do. And finally, these enemies that are a long way away from us, the easiest way to clear distance is with Stormbind. It will stop us again. Fizz, you don't get any AP for this because it's a DLC episode, it doesn't matter. but you can use Stormbind to dart around like a maniac to get to where you need to go. Every action you do builds up Ignis's Total Clarity, which is usually in the bottom left, but because it's his DLC, he has his own HUD, which once again I wish carried over into the main game. And Total Clarity is in the bottom right instead. When Total Clarity is filled, you can then do a special attack on triangle. They wanted us to do Stormbind there first, but I did Ice because it just hits everyone and is powerful. And I'm going to show off all three at some point during the fight anyway. Also, during combat, you can hold down triangle to force up a build of Total Clarity. But like I say, it only works when you're in combat, so it only works when you're taking the risk of getting hit. Because it counts this as combat even though there's no enemies around, so I could build up Total Clarity, so the next time a mook shows up, I can hit them with something. The Total Clarity of Fire will just attack one enemy a lot of times. Ice will hit all the enemies in an area, but the Stormbind actually works slightly different. To get Stormbind Total Clarity, is enemies hit with Stormbind have like an electric static charge around them. Any enemy that's been hit with Stormbind just before you kick it off will then be hit by it. So you can chain and sequence many enemies together if you use it wisely, making it technically the most effective one if used properly. But we get the main thing of this DLC here. We only have it for this DLC, so enjoy it while you got it. A hook shot! Like a proper Arkham style hook shot. You can just cling on the corners of buildings and it'll pull you to it. It doesn't work perfectly, but it works well enough to have fun with it. But as we come up here, we'll see, let's say Titan has already come up and been summoned, so Noctis has already had his gargantuan fight with Leviathan at this point. So it's after he's collapsed and been knocked unconscious, and it's after Luna's unfortunate stabbing. So it's just a matter of getting to him before the Imperials can get to him, before the Niflheim Empire can get there. And there's the altar, a beacon of hope. And to be fair, for a dead deity, the Titan is doing really, really well in its spiritual form of keeping the Imperial forces at bay. Right, this mode you're only going to see it in this section because I don't bother with it because there's no point. There's essential like district by district takeover system in the game that will boost your score if you do it, because instead of making score attack a separate mode, they tie the score attack into this main mode. There's just no time limit with it, and so you can get a better score and a better rank at the end to take a bit of pride on. I won't be bothering with it because it's literally just points on a score, and I wanted to get all of episode Ignis done in one part, and to do that would involve skipping it because the video is 49 minutes, for Christ's sake. But I show off this one at least because you kind of have to do this one. And it will see in the top left power balance of how many enemies there are left before you take over the district. Every time you advance something in the plot, more districts will get taken over, including ones you've already taken back. So there's always more points available to burn through and get a really high points ranking at the end. But also it's worth mentioning that your point rankings will only count towards so much because your time will add a multiplier to your score. So even though there isn't a time limit, if you're very quick about it and balance out how many districts you do without going too overboard, you'll get the maximized score out of it. So find your balance. But that's ultimately if you really care about it. Like I said, at the end of the day, it really doesn't matter that much other than bragging rights to your friends, which is all scoring system really has to be, but when you're not fast about scoring, there's no point in doing it. But the power balance is nearly done in this area and we've nearly taken over. But that's essentially how the map system works. Every time you go into the map, instead of it being a traditional map, you'll just zoom out and it will show what blocks are taken over and what blocks are not. Thanks, Wescombe. Now we need to head to that bridge. And Altisha is in... well, it's been in better shape, that's for sure.
I need your help. I fear Noct is in danger.
I'll visit the entire city of Altisha in case you haven't taken a look around. He and his girlfriend are probably long gone.
No. I made a promise to keep him safe. A promise I intend to keep.
Camilla has she doesn't give a shit. She doesn't care if the prince, the Destiny Prince or the Oracle is dead, despite how important they are. Because she's a secretary. She's a political mind. She's an arsehole. This is me desperately trying to get the items but eventually abandon it because I just can't get them. But that's probably the reason why I disagree with Westcombe slightly. They said she has good intentions, but she just comes off blunt. I was like, no, I don't think she does. I can't remember if I actually said I felt that way last part or not, but I kind of don't. But I'd like to try and agree with the game if I can get away with it, if it makes sense and I can actually agree with it, but I just can't. But as we try and cross this bridge, we'll get, well, stopped essentially. Making our bridge unusable. And that kinda ends this first section of it, but we've got a cutscene coming up where we've got a familiar face, if you remember the general we attempted to kidnap and then the general came back in that bonus part with Loki.
Have you located the ring yet, Commander? And what of Lunafreya?
Both, High Commander. But our forces are unable to extract either at present. We've no way of approaching the altar so long as the Archean stands in our way.
Gods are on his side. Neither the King nor the Oracle will escape with their lives if the fighting continues. Order a full retreat. I'm going in alone.
But sir...
I assume you are already familiar with how I got this arm.
Yes, sir.
Then you must also know the ring is worthless without one who can wield it.
Very well, sir. How dare he address me with such impudence? Has he forgotten his place entirely? Or is he too concerned about his sister to care?
Time is of the essence. Which way to the altar?
There's a lot of plot things there I want to quickly talk about. Firstly, we saw a bit where it says Ravus Noctis, Luna's older brother, mentioned it says, I'm sure you're familiar with how I got this arm. His prosthetic mechanical arm that he's got, that's a reference to an event that happened in Kingsglaive, the film, which is based between chapter 1 and 2, and I'm just explaining it in case people haven't watched the film. The Ring of Lucii, an artifact that we've mentioned before, of being something only destined to be used by the Royal King, or a people of royal blood, Ravus tried to harness its power, but because of his ill will intention of using it, the ring punished him by setting his entire arm on fire and sort of burning his arm to a crisp. That was his punishment. It was later then used by a royal glaive, a king's glaive, by the name of Nyx. But because, even though he wasn't of royal blood, because his intention was genuine to save the city, he was given the power even if it later killed him. It's worth mentioning this because this does actually play a part into episode Ignis and parts of the plot moving forward, which is a little annoying, and it is a genuine criticism that they lock behind certain important parts of the plot to a fucking film, but it is what it is, unfortunately. So I felt like I needed to clean that up just in case there was any confusion for anyone watching this, like what happened with Ravus. Also with Kingsglaive, if you ever watch it, his face model's very different in Kingsglaive compared to anything else. They make him look a lot younger in Kingsglaive than they do in the game, which apparently was a deliberate decision because of something that happened late in development, but it is what it is. Same as they had Sean Bean voicing King Regis in the film. Regis, not Regis. Which is hilarious because it's yet another thing. It's yet another thing that Sean Bean's been in that he's died in. Like, he's not allowed to live in anything he plays. I'm sure of it. Like, he's even now like he's gonna be like a special target in the new Hitman game. He's a target in a Hitman game. It means he's not gonna live again. Also, what you saw me do there when I got taken down, I didn't use an item. I just got myself up. Ignis's most broken ass ability and most brilliant ability is that he can do that. If you ever put into danger state, you don't need an item or a teammate to get yourself up. You just need to hold triangle, and Iggy will correct his glasses and just get up. And you can. It doesn't matter what opposition you're against, how heavy the strike is. As long as it isn't an instant kill strike, if it's just a danger zone strike, you can hold triangle and you will get back up. Which makes him kind of effective on certain super bosses in the post game. I won't be using him. I'll only be using him for one super boss because that's the one. Because each episode has a super boss tied to it, and so the one tied to him for episode Ignis, the one tied to episode Ignis, then obviously I'll be using Ignis 4, and I'll really be showing off just how effective that whole triangle move is. Anyway, we take back this district because you kind of have to advance the plot.
Attention all units.
Assemble at the docks and prepare for withdrawal.
And this is where we get our information that they're actually heading to the dock.
Wait, I'm headed to the altar. I need a boat.
Have you lost your marbles?
No, but we'll lose the king if we don't act.
Give him what he wants. Understood.
Thanks, Camilla.
Kiss him. I'll take Gil instead. Do you copy?
Thanks, Camilla. I like this. Prompto says, "Do you copy?" And then Iggy just doesn't respond.
Question, Iggy. Do you copy? Yes or no?
I copy.
Then speak up next time. Look, I'm just as worried as you are. But we can't go losing our heads. If we want to save the
Well-
Earth, we've got to keep it together.
So I wanted to let that dialogue finish, but it's also worth mentioning, since we passed that battle, almost every single theme in this game, in this episode, is a subtle remix of Ignis's theme, which I love. Like, it's not like episode Gladio where they went, "Oh, let's go heavy metal," or the other episode when we get to that did its own thing. This one knew the emotional significance of it, and knew the emotional significance of Ignis's theme, so found a way to incorporate it into almost every single track, with the exception being one particular boss fight theme, and I think the credits theme, but that might be misremembering. But now we start the next section. We need to just get to the altar, and we get to drive the boat. We actually get to drive it. It's not like a scripted thing. Controlling the boat is very easy to do, so don't worry about it. It's not like driving the car where you're on a scripted road. You do actually have a lot of freedom with how you move it around. As you can see, I'm like making subtle adjustments and whatnot. It's a relatively linear path though, but it's the fact that you have a lot of free control with it. They did the controls on the boat physics quite well, I feel. And the music that's now playing is a remix of the Summon theme, which makes sense because of all the chaos invoked by the deities, the summons themselves. As Ignis nearly got blinded by the light there. Easy. And this is quite a spectacle to see whilst you're driving around as well. I'll give them credit. Something that Square Enix has always been the champions of, in my opinion, is making really amazing to the eye spectacle moments. Even in the older Final Fantasies that have had their graphics dated now, still have some absolute eye-catching moments despite their age, despite not looking as good as they do. Like classic example, Aerith in 7. The scene of where it all kicks and where it happens is still artistically really well done, and still beautiful in its own way, even if you can tell it's from 1997. But during the carnage, we unfortunately are knocked off our boat, and we have to make an emergency swim, but not before Caligo decides he wants his revenge.
Well, look who it is. What could one of His Majesty's royal retainers be doing here, of all places?
Oh, probably the same reason you're here, arsewipe. The hookshot wire is snapped, and so the hookshot mechanic is no more for the rest of this chapter. It's you only get it for a little while, and that's why you have to mess around with everything you have there. There are also resting points around if you want to save and quit at any point. And the deity also vanishes now. That's the end of Titan, as you kind of saw in the background there. Titan has done what he needs to do.
Surrender now, and I'll ensure your end is as painless as possible.
Never.
So cocky, Caligo, despite the fact you failed twice. The only thing you succeeded in was running like a bitch at the first time he encountered you. He escaped with his life, and that was his only victory, escaping.
Plenty more where that came from.
This is pretty scripted, so don't worry about it, just keep driving. It's an active cutscene, really.
Serves another.
Oh, and Caligo is so cocky, he's so generic villain in this, it's quite funny.
The ring of the Lucia will be mine.
You say that, Caligo, but you're not worthy. If you got the Ring of the Lucii, you'd probably have a very similar fate to Ravus, assuming it didn't punish you more. But now we've lost our earpiece, so we've lost contact with Gladiolus and Prompto as well. And now it plays this old theme, it plays the Imperial boss theme. So this is one of the other times as well where it doesn't play a remix of Ignis's theme. This isn't a hard fight because you fought these kind of mechs so many times now in the game. It's just another one, you've just got Ignis and there's a bunch of mooks around. But just like episode Gladiolus, you are at a scripted level with this. You're at a scripted level of strength, scripted everything. So you are strong enough to handle this. Don't think that you might be under-leveled or anything like that. You are definitely strong enough to be able to tackle this. So just keep your bearings about you, keep the attack on. If you can, get on top of it and destroy the rockets, but understand that Ignis isn't as capable in the air as Noctis is. So take it with a grain of salt. Only if you can get up there, get up there. And also understand any attack that hard knocks down Ignis, you can tap the square, get a good recovery and a quick counter attack. But don't mash square though. If you get hit and you just stop mashing square, it will not give it to you. You have to time it. And so yeah, that's as easy as that. It was very quickly falling apart and we're done with. And for the third time in Caligo's time in this game, he's been defeated, but now he's really not looking so good.
Ravers.
I've no quarrel with you, boy. Join me. I can secure us a way to the King and the Oracle.
How do I know I can trust you?
Have you any other options?
You have a point.
Then it's settled.
And now that we enter chapter 2 of episode Ignis, even though technically it's still in chapter 9 the main game, but whatever, it's what they decided to do for this episode. We have Ravus accompanying us, which he has his own set of link strikes and blindside attacks as well with him, and his own technique called Last Rites, which is an AoE, or an area effect attack, where he slams the ground, making an electric pulse surrounding him that can affect and damage any enemy around him. And since most of the enemies here are weak to electric, you can imagine how effective that really is. But don't get used to it, Ravus is not with us for that long. But this is a fun section, to be fair, to have Ravus with you. And I shouldn't really ask for too much, because it's pretty cool that we have 4 playable characters now. When the game launched, we only had 1, which 4 different playable characters in an action game. Quite rare. It's quite rare to get this many action characters in this kind of game, and all of them be different, and not just reskins or copies or whatnot. So asking for Ravus to be playable as well would be way too much, and just me asking for too much in a game that's already delivered on quite a fair amount in my opinion. But it is pretty cool. And Ravus just doesn't have a health bar. I guess after when the main game originally launched and everyone realised, hang on a minute, no, the 5th members don't have health, don't die. Their health bar stops at 1. I'm guessing for the DLCs they just assumed all teammates shouldn't have a health bar full stop. It's just not worth the hassle. Ow. Yeah, if it's a hard knockdown, you can always do the counter move, which is quite cool when some bullets count as hard knockdowns as well. So then the thing that's usually quite annoying, you can use as a weapon against your enemy. And since recovery encounters always restore the health you just lost, you can keep on going for quite a while. To the point where sometimes it actually becomes encourageable to let yourself get hit for the free counter. Well, at least as long as you know if you can survive it. If you know you can survive it, go right ahead. Because if the attack's going to put you in a danger state, it won't matter.
You might be of use after all. Follow me, if you're ready.
Yeah, we're ready, Ravus. There's a rest point right here to the right here. I said right here to the right here. No, whatever. You knew what I meant. I mean, right here, as in where we are, and then to the right, as into the direction right. But there's just a rest point here. There's several around, and you can do a manual save off of them as well. I refrain to because it gives you one at the end of every chapter anyway. And this is where I just quickly check what gear and items I actually have on me before I proceed. And this is where you can see Noct, I need to call it. Ravus has like his own fair share of weapons and equipment you can look at, you just can't change it. And Ignis is using the spell daggers, the unique weapon he has for this section of the game, which you won't actually have for that long, because although yeah, it's a very good piece of equipment, we'll be soon in the game getting a piece of equipment that's better than it, so Iggy won't have it equipped to him for that long. But now is sort of our core moment, like how in core at the end of every camp scene we had a point where we could talk to him. Now we have our Ravus moment where we can sit down and ask Ravus a bunch of stuff.
Why turn against the Empire? Why now?
My sister's life is at stake. Is that not reason enough?
That I like about Ravus's character. He's acting because it's his family matter, not because of his beliefs.
So too is our calling. I must protect her.
He's only like siding with us because he knows it will protect Lunafreya. Shame he doesn't know what's about to happen, no? As you saw last part.
What of it?
And now we get to actually ask him, and he'll explain more about what he meant with Kingsglaive, where he found the ring.
Doubts are correct.
Well, I don't know how much he'll mention it.
It was I who was destined to dispel the darkness.
So he picked up the ring of the Lucii and equipped it, and it destroyed his arm, so he had to have that new prosthetic. Which, to be fair, I kind of like the dark arm of it. It matches the light colouring, like it's like a bit of darkness was in his vein, which is why it didn't work. So now he has a symbol of that darkness that stopped him from having the ring of Lucii on him at all times, by having this darkened arm. It's a nice, like, almost symbolic thing of having all the white armour of him thinking he was pure and holy, and then suddenly the dark arm on top of it because he actually wasn't. But now we've run out of time for questions because more of the Imperials have moved in, so we need to get a move on.
After the ring of the Lucii. If the ring falls into the wrong hands, I fear there's little hope for either of them.
We must hurry.
In fact, we say that, but I can't help but the ring of the Lucii is a little bit of like the Indiana Jones effect. What I mean is, like, if we did nothing and the Empire got a hold of the ring, they're not like pure and their morals are not good. If they equip the ring, the deities would almost definitely reject them and punish them for it. So it's like, couldn't we just sit back and wait for them to get the ring, put it on, and then watch them all kind of burn to a crisp? But there is an outlier to it, and that outlier we won't be able to get to till much, much later on, which I'll make sure to make a note to mention again when we get to said outlier, so then you know what I'm on about. Hopefully you guys will just work it out, otherwise if I forget. But without that outlier, it is one of those things where it's like, well, you saw what happened to Ravus, couldn't we just wait? And just wait for all the Imperials to kind of just destroy themselves, assuming they don't use the ring for science experiments to try and discover what's going on and what makes it tick and harness it in different ways. Because if you can harness it into a machine, I'm sure there'll be a way of getting around it. Also, this stealth section is like scripted as all hell. I've never been caught, even when trying to get caught. Just run to where you need to go and then hit triangle, and you'll just proceed as normal. Although Ravus like knows the special weakness, which makes sense for a stealth kill, whatnot. This one though, where we just step in, throw a casual spear, and that's it. It's dead. That doesn't make sense to me, because if you tried that in the game and attacked at that spot, you'd just bop it and it'd do like 2 damage, because you need to take out the breakable parts in the area first. Also, instead of thanking each other, they just say don't get in each other's way. Like, they still don't really like each other. I think there's a bit of a mutual respect going on, but they don't really like each other.
I believe it goes without saying.
Yet when the flames of war enshrouded Tenebrae, his father spared us nary a second thought. No savior king could possibly be born of such cowardice.
To aid the king is the oracle's calling, is it not? Or have you simply forgotten the pledge sworn by
Iggy, I can't help but feel like you've slightly avoided the subject matter Ravus was talking about. Ravus's home at Tenebrae was attacked and lives were lost, and the king did not help. That was what he was saying. He's like, why was there no help if we're so important? Why didn't you help us then when it mattered? And then Iggy said, yeah, but it's his calling to only protect the Oracle, so it was what it had to do, sort of thing. And that's like, yeah, but Iggy, I feel like there's a part of the subject matter you didn't address. Like, there's a part missing. Like, you made a counterpoint, yeah, but there's like your counterpoint missed part of Ravus's initial point. Like, I'm not saying the king's a good guy, and I'm not saying Ravus is 100% accurate, like in the right here. Like, neither are in the right, I feel, in this subject matter. But I felt like Iggy could have tackled that a bit better. Like, I know he's stressing out and whatnot, but still, you know, we got another rage of encounters. These two here, the Koalas, or however you pronounce their bloody names, you can encounter them in the main game, and in the main game I always recommend avoiding them because they can wreck your shit very quickly. They're very powerful and formidable foes in the main game, but even when you're at their level, they can just kind of wipe the floor with you because of how quick and how damaging they are. And I can put it more on luck than anything else that we haven't encountered them, because if we did encounter them when we was in the main game Overworld, I probably would have gone and fought one just to show how deadly they really are. But I didn't spot one, or if I did spot them, they were in the middle of the plot thing, so I couldn't really do much about it. And so there'll be something that I'll probably bump into in the post-game and show off properly then. Because there's a long list. I've actually been writing down a list of everything I'll need to cover in the post-game. The only thing I haven't written down is the 4 extra DLC episodes that are supposed to come out early next year. Because we've got 4 more DLC episodes that are slightly different, slightly out there, and explaining different parts and having a bit more fun with it.
He still has much to prove.
That we're expecting in 2019. When we were supposed to get one of them late 2018, but the silence on the subject matter tells me that it's not happening at the end of this year. It'll probably be early next year we'll get the first one. Which you can look up online, the name of all of them, but I'll go through them like after the cutscenes at some point, probably during the credits more than anything, because we've got quite a hefty amount of cutscenes and plots about to kick off now.
Knocked! Lunafreya. Are you her dog? What did I just see? A vision of what's to come? Knocked! No.
First, the Lucians stole from me my mother. And now they make a sacrifice of my sister. Get out of my way! What are you doing? What I should have done long ago! Ridding us of this menace!
This, I honestly don't blame Ravus for. Like, I think a lot of people lost a family member of them trying to protect someone else would have an aggressive or violent reaction towards the person they saved, especially if you already don't like that person, and now it's like, alright, someone in my family died protecting this person I don't like. You would be like, ugh, and be a very aggressive reaction. So I can understand and justify Ravus's action here, even if I can also understand Iggy and his desperate attempt to defend it. I can't really give a stat list for this because despite my best efforts I cannot find a stat list for it before this fight. So this is, you can only really work off what you see, but the main strategy here is just keep up the assault. Ignis' gameplay style is based around always being able to push on the frontal assault and keep up the pressure regardless of what it is, which is why it gives you a damage multiplier when you can keep up the pressure. And that's essentially the strategy. Just keep on top of yourself. He struggles a bit with fire, so it's your best bet. If he starts making distance from you, swap to electric, you shouldn't really be using ice at any point during this fight.
Her sacrifice will have been for naught. Kill him,
You also have overclock as your powerful technique to get that 8 times damage multiplier if you really want to start hitting Ravus as hard as you can. But this is quite an emotionally charged fight, so I don't think they really want you to lose this, if I'm honest. I think they want this to kind of fall in your favour because of the emotional charge and the story implications of it. Like, they don't want you to be too challenged by it. And during the whole fight, Iggy and Ravus will constantly have a back and forth towards each other about whether or not it's right to fight Noctis, whether to kill Noctis afterwards. Ravus wants Noctis dead after everything Lunafreya has suffered, but Ignis knows that it's for the better of the future that Noctis has to remain alive, making this balance of emotion versus what's right sort of thing. It's law versus chaos. And even though we have to side with law being Ignis, I can understand Ravus' side of it. I can be understanding of it. But when his HP starts to drop, he'll start doing more signature attacks and some things like this. But all you have to do when he starts doing this is get one more hit on him. As soon as you do that, the fight is over. Well, almost one more hit. He has to do a scripted jump away, so it didn't give that to me. So I high jump instead, and then it gives it to me, ending the fight.
I always knew. That you would face your fate without fear. Fulfill your duty without regret. But part of me always hoped that I might see you happy one day. Your burdens lifted. Free to live and love as you please. You would have made a beautiful bride. Even in death, the Oracle does not rest. Only once the darkness is dispelled is her calling truly fulfilled. And as in life, I know she will confront that challenge with a smile on her face. Oh, sister, please don't go. Please don't leave me.
Iggy! Gladio! Are you all right? Where's Prompto?
Well, well. What have we here?
You, Arden.
Oh dear. Was I that transparent?
The game's up, my boy. Come now, why not follow your liege's lead and stop resisting?
Never!
You risked life and limb to safeguard the King of Kings, only to witness him fail so spectacularly. You must be so disappointed.
Unhand him!
I know I am. Oh, what good is a world that only ever lets you down? Why not end it all right here?
No. You can't. Noct!
My, you two certainly have become fast friends. Permit me to make a suggestion. Rather than follow this flotsam and float away to a watery grave, why not come with me? What do you say? I'll take that as a no.
I swore an oath to stand with Noct and keep him safe. Whatever it takes, I will protect him.
I wouldn't do that if I were you.
I may not be of your blood, but if a glaive can harness its power, then so can I! Kings of Lucis, lend me your strength!
Well, they've shown you their favor after all.
And now we know exactly how Ignis was blinded. I like how they showed the very moments he loses his vision. Like when he puts the ring on, it shows the screen blur into black. I think that's a really cool effect of showing that the very moment Ignis loses his vision, because he is blind in this fight. Ignis can no longer see what's going on. It's just the raw power of the Ring of Lucii almost giving him a heightened sense of everything else that allows him to persevere regardless of what is happening. Unfortunately though, despite this fight against Arden is a scripted loss anyway, even though your damage multiplier can go all the way up to 10 times because of the Ring of Lucii's severe boosts and bonuses of what it gives you. And the Blazing Tactician, amazing theme in the soundtrack, is blaring in the background, which is another remix of Iggy's theme, which is just, as I've mentioned it before, but the Iggy's theme in this is just amazing, and I think it works brilliantly for this whole episode. But as all fights must come to, the time runs out and the Ring of Lucii stops giving us power. I try and use a potion just to save my ass. No, it doesn't work. The fight is over, and thus this episode as well.
Nox.
That was rather reckless.
Where's Noct? Is he all right?
More or less. All thanks to you.
Thank goodness.
Iggy! Where are you?
Be still. Conserve your strength. You've a calling to fulfill.
Not!
As do I. May fortune favor us both. And you as well, Noctis.
Please, forgive me.
And that is episode Ignis. I won't be showing all of the credits, and in fact, you won't be seeing any of the credits because I've zoomed it in on where the cutscenes happen because they're quite important this time. And I won't be showing all the cutscenes here either because they do spoil things later in the game, because this episode did come out significantly after the main game was released. It came out, I think, like near closest to Christmas, like closest to this sort of time maybe. Like over a year ago now. But it came out significantly after the game's launch, so they showed cutscenes of like showing you how things played out. So you won't be seeing all the cutscenes of what happened. You'll just be seeing the initial aftermath that we already saw through the main game. One extra cutscene, and that's it. But that's the whole of episode Ignis, and probably my favourite episode of the 3 episodes. I think I didn't really have much time to talk about it too much and give it much justice, but this is my favourite and the most emotionally compelling and mostly demanding of the player, especially because Ignis is my favourite of the bros, as I've made quite clear a few times now. But that being said, next time on Final Fantasy 15, we'll persevere and carry on despite our losses to get the crystal back. But until then, you guys take care now.
Knocked. Perhaps it might be best if we brought our journey to a close.
Why?
It's just that, we've already lost so much. Too much.
Are you kidding me? That's exactly why I have to keep going. Because if I give up now, their sacrifices would have been for nothing. And you of all people. You should know that better than anyone.
The decision is yours to make, and yours alone. But do remember, we will stand with you always, and help you bear your burdens. Don't be afraid to let us share the load. I'll be back.